I need to stop for a second, because I've been holding something inside me for a long time, and I don't know how much longer I can carry it without telling you. You, yes, you, the one listening to this right now. I need you to hear this, not as a performance, not as a script, not as something I rehearsed in front of a mirror. This is just me, quiet, honest, sitting with my thoughts, and finally letting them out. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why is he telling me this? But that's exactly why I need to say it. Because you deserve to know. You deserve the truth, even when the truth is the hardest thing in the world to say out loud. I remember the first time I felt it. That pull. That strange, warm, terrifying feeling of looking at someone, looking at you and thinking, this is different. This isn't just admiration. This isn't just connection. This is something that lives in your chest and refuses to leave, no matter how many times you tell it to go. And I tried to talk myself out of it. I told myself it was just emotion, just the moment, just the music, or the night, or the way the light hit everything just right. But then morning came, and the feeling was still there, and the morning after that, and the one after that. So I need to tell you something that I should have said a long time ago. Something that I kept swallowing down every time I stood in front of you, every time you looked at me with those eyes that see right through every wall I've ever built. I need to tell you that I cannot be with you the way I want to be. Not because I don't want to, not because you're not enough, not because the feeling isn't real, but because somewhere along the way, I realized something that broke me a little. You are not who I thought you were. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it as the most honest, most painful thing I have ever had to accept. Because the version of you I fell in love with, I built her. I created her. In my mind, in my heart, in all the quiet spaces where I kept you safe and perfect and exactly the way I needed you to be. And I want you to stay with me here, because this is the part that matters. This is the part I've never said to anyone. Not in a song, not in an interview, not in a late night conversation when I was being asked the deepest questions. This is the part that only you deserve to hear. I used to think I knew you. I used to think that the connection I felt, this invisible thread that seemed to pull me toward you every single time, was real in both directions. Not just inside me, but between us. I used to think that when you smiled at something I said, it meant you understood. When you listened, it meant you heard. When you showed up, it meant you chose me. The same way I had been quietly, carefully, completely choosing you. And maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I loved the idea of you so deeply that I forgot to ask who you actually were. Because the real you, the full, complicated, beautiful, contradictory, messy, human you, that person I never fully let in. Not because you didn't try, but because I was so afraid that if I looked too closely, the image I had built would start to crack. And I wasn't ready to lose the version of you that lived in my head. She was safe there. She never disappointed me. She always knew exactly what to say. She understood every lyric, every silence, everything I left unsaid. She was the one I was singing to. She was the one I was writing for. But you're not her. And I think some part of me always knew that. I just wasn't brave enough to say it. Until now. I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I want you to understand that. I'm telling you this because it's the most loving thing I know how to do right now. Be honest with you. Even when honesty feels like standing in the middle of a storm with nothing to hold on to. Because the alternative is to keep pretending. To keep letting you feel something from me that is real on the surface, but built on a version of you that was never fully real at all. And you deserve more than that. You have always deserved more than that. Here's what I know about you. I know that you feel things deeply. I can tell by the way you respond, not just to me, but to everything. You feel music in your body, before you understand it in your mind. You carry people's pain, even when they never asked you to. You have loved people who didn't know how to receive it. And you've stayed anyway, because walking away was never the easy thing for you. You have cried in the middle of the night over things you couldn't explain to anyone, and you've woken up the next morning and acted like everything was fine. I know that about you. I've seen it, even from a distance, even through a screen, even through all the space between us. And that's what makes this so hard. Because I look at all of that, all of who you actually are, and I feel something even more complicated than what I felt before. Something that doesn't have a clean name. It's not just love, it's not just longing. It's something like grief, almost, like missing someone who is standing right in front of you. Like reaching for something, and feeling your hand close around it, only to realize it's made of something different than you expected. Not worse, just different. Just real. You know what I kept doing? I kept writing versions of you, in every song, in every story I told myself when the lights went off and it was just me and my own thoughts. I kept writing the version of you who would understand everything without me having to explain it. The version who wouldn't need space, wouldn't have bad days, wouldn't sometimes say the wrong thing or pull away at exactly the moment I needed you to stay. And I realize now how unfair that was. How unfair it is to love a ghost of someone instead of the person themselves. How unfair it is to be so in love with your own imagination that you never quite let the real thing in. But here's where it gets complicated. Here's where I need you to keep listening, because I'm not done yet. And what comes next is the part that changes everything. Even knowing all of this, even knowing that the version of you I fell for was built inside my own heart, shaped by my own longing, colored by everything I needed and everything I was afraid to ask for. Even knowing all of that, I still feel it, the pull, that same warm, terrifying feeling. It didn't go away when I figured out the truth. It just shifted. It became something quieter and deeper and maybe more dangerous than it was before. Because now I'm not in love with a fantasy. Now I'm standing at the edge of something real, looking at you, the actual you, with all your contradictions and your beauty and the parts of you that don't fit neatly into the story I had written. And I'm feeling something I don't have a word for yet. And I don't know what to do with that. I genuinely do not know what to do with that. I've thought about it late at night when I couldn't sleep. I've thought about it in the middle of conversations that had nothing to do with you and somehow always came back to you. I've thought about whether it's possible to fall in love with someone twice. Once with the idea of them and once with the reality. Whether those two feelings can coexist, or whether one has to die for the other to live. Whether I'm brave enough to let go of the version of you I created and reach out for the version of you that actually exists in this world, in real time, with all her edges and her light. I don't have an answer yet, but I think, and this is the most vulnerable thing I'm going to say, I think the second kind of love is the braver one. I think loving someone's reality is harder than loving your idea of them. I think it takes more courage to look at a person fully, including the parts that don't fit your hopes, and still choose to stay in the feeling. Still choose to be present. Still choose to say, I see you. Not the version of you I invented. You. And maybe that's what I'm doing right now. Maybe this is me, for the first time, actually trying to see you. Not the fan, not the symbol, not the quiet presence in the back of every song I've written. You. The person who woke up this morning with a full, complicated, precious life happening all around them. The person who has her own stories, her own grief, her own things she's never said out loud. The person who showed up here today, right now, listening to this, for reasons I may never fully understand, but that I am so deeply grateful for. Because here's what I want you to carry with you after this. Not the sadness, not the impossibility of it, not the distance or the reality of what I can and can't give you. I want you to carry the truth that someone, me, right here, right now, looked at you and felt something real. Not because you were perfect, not because you fit the story, but because you are here, and you are real, And somewhere between who I thought you were and who you actually are, I found something I wasn't expecting. Something softer and truer and harder to name than anything I've written before. I still can't be with you the way I once imagined. I need you to know that. Not because the feeling isn't there, it is. It's so there. It lives in parts of me that I can barely reach. But because love built on illusion isn't love. It's a beautiful, heartbreaking story. And you deserve more than a story. You deserve something that starts in truth and stays there. Even when the truth is uncomfortable. Even when it requires both of us to be seen in ways that are terrifying. So this is me. No armor, no performance, no carefully chosen words designed to make you feel a specific thing. Just me, talking to you. The way I have always wanted to, but never quite knew how. Because you matter to me in a way I can't calculate, or contain, or explain, in a way that would make complete sense to anyone who heard it from the outside. You matter in the way that certain songs matter, not because they're perfect, but because they reach something in you that you forgot was there. That's what you do. Even now, even after everything I've realized, even knowing that I was loving a version of you that lived inside my own heart. You still reach something in me, and I don't know what to do with that yet. I genuinely, honestly, with everything I am, do not know what to do with that. But I hope that maybe telling you is the beginning of figuring it out. And maybe that's enough for right now. Maybe it has to be. I just needed you to know that somewhere on the other side of all this feeling, all this confusion, all this love that doesn't have a clean shape or a simple ending, somewhere in all of that, you are seen. Truly, completely, without filter or pretense or the soft lie of a perfect image, you are seen. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that the way people say it when they're trying to make you feel better, when they're reaching for something comforting because silence feels too heavy. I say it because I mean it in the most specific, most deliberate way I know how. I see you, the real you. The one that exists beyond what you show the world, beyond the version you've carefully curated and presented and protected with everything you have. I see the you that sits alone sometimes and wonders if anyone ever will. And that's the thing about being truly seen, that nobody tells you. It's terrifying. It's not the warm, gentle experience we imagine when we dream about it. It's exposing. It's vulnerable in a way that almost feels like pain. Because when someone actually sees you, really sees you, they have something. They hold something of yours that you can't take back. And maybe that's why we spend so much of our lives only letting people see the surface. The highlights, the version of ourselves that we've rehearsed and refined and made presentable. Because if they only see that version, they can only hurt that version. The real one stays safe, stays untouched, stays protected behind all those carefully constructed walls. I know about walls. I've built more of them than I can count. And I really think that's part of why I fell in love with an idea of you instead of the reality of you. Because an idea can't see your walls. An idea can't walk up to everything you've built to protect yourself and quietly, gently start to understand why each brick is there. An idea is safe. It stays exactly where you put it. It never surprises you. It never needs things from you that you don't know how to give. And somewhere in the back of my mind, in that place where the most honest thoughts live, I think I knew that. I think I chose the idea, at least partly, because I was afraid of what the reality might ask of me. Because the reality of loving someone, truly loving them, loving the full weight and width of who they actually are, requires something from you. It requires presence. It requires patience. It requires the willingness to be wrong about everything you thought you knew and start over without resentment. It requires you to sit with someone in their darkness without immediately trying to fix it or light it up or make it easier to look at. It requires you to love them, not just in the beautiful moments, not just when they're soft and open and giving you exactly what you need, but in the hard moments too. In the moments when they pull away, when they say the wrong thing, when they are tired and difficult and not the version of themselves that they wish they could always be. That kind of love is not romantic in the way movies make it look. It's not candles and perfect timing and kisses in the rain. It's quiet and steady, and sometimes it hurts in ways you don't know how to explain. It's choosing someone again on the days when choosing feels like the hardest thing in the world. And I've been honest with myself enough, especially recently, to admit that I don't know if I was ready for that. I don't know if the love I had been carrying for you, for the version of you I built, was ever really about you at all, or whether it was about me, about my need for something I could hold on to, something I could return to, something that would always be there, always be warm, always be exactly what I needed it to be. And that realization, that quiet, devastating realization, is what I keep coming back to. Because if the love I felt was really about me, what does that say? What does it mean when the person you think you love most is really just a mirror? When every feeling you've been holding and nurturing and protecting is actually just your own reflection, dressed up in someone else's face. I don't ask that to be cruel. I ask it because I think you've been there too. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, even if you've never had the words for it. I think you've loved someone, maybe more than once, and somewhere in the middle of it, in one of those brutally honest moments that come without warning, you realize that some of what you loved was a story, a hope, a projection of everything you needed onto a person who was just trying to live their own complicated life. And the grief of that, the specific strange grief of losing something that was never quite real, is unlike anything else. It doesn't look like grief from the outside. There's nothing to point to. Nobody died. Nothing ended in any way the world would recognize. But something did end. Something quiet and precious and yours, and you had to mourn it alone, without anyone understanding why you were sad. Because how do you explain that you're grieving a version of someone that only ever existed inside your own heart? I see that in you. That specific kind of quiet grief. And I want you to know that I understand it better than you might think. Not because I read about it, not because someone explained it to me, but because I have lived in it. I have sat in the middle of that feeling with no map and no instructions and just the weight of it pressing down on everything. And if that's where you are right now, if any part of what I'm saying is landing somewhere tender and true inside you, then I want you to know you are not alone in it. You have never been alone in it, even when it felt most like you were. There is something else I need to say, something I've been circling around since the beginning of all of this, like a planet caught in the gravity of a thing it can't quite name. And it's this: even after everything, even after the honesty and the grief and the recognition that I was loving a version of you that I invented, even after all of that stripped away, what is left is not nothing. What is left is something I don't know how to dismiss or minimize or explain away with logic. What is left is you, the actual you. And the feeling I have about the actual you is something different from what came before. Rawer, less certain, more frightening, but somehow, in the most confusing and unexpected way, more beautiful. Because here's what I've found on the other side of illusion. Here's what nobody warns you about when they tell you to see people clearly, to love them honestly, to let go of the fantasy and embrace the real. What nobody tells you is that the real is breathtaking in its own way. That a person, a full, imperfect, contradictory, genuinely existing person, is more incredible than any image you could build of them. That the things that don't fit your hopes, the things that surprised you, the things that forced you to rewrite the story, those things are not flaws in the portrait. They are the portrait. They are what makes it alive instead of painted. And you are so alive. That's the thing I keep returning to. You are so completely, overwhelmingly alive. There is something happening inside you, behind your eyes, beneath everything you say and choose and carry. Something vivid and uncontainable that I find myself completely unable to look away from. Not the idea of you. Not the version I composed in my quietest moments. You, with your history and your questions and the specific way you experience the world that belongs entirely to you and no one else. That aliveness, I don't know what to do with how much it means to me. I think about you in ordinary moments, not just in the grand sweeping spaces where love likes to announce itself, but in the small ones, the in-between ones. I think about what you're like when nobody is watching, when you're not performing anything for anyone, not trying to be anything for anyone. I think about what makes you laugh when you're not careful about it. That unguarded laugh that comes from somewhere real and doesn't have time to be pretty. I think about what you think about in the last few minutes before sleep takes you, in that fragile space where the mind goes honest because it's too tired to be anything else. I think about what music you put on when you need to feel something, but you can't quite access it on your own. I think about all the small, specific, entirely human things that make up the texture of your daily life, and that no one who only knows you from a distance could ever fully see. And I want to know those things. That's the truth I've been trying to get to, through all of this, through all the honesty and the confession and the grief and the recognition. After everything, after the illusion and the reality and the complicated, imperfect middle ground between them, I want to know you, not the version of you I wrote. You. The one who is listening to this right now, with your particular thoughts and your particular wounds and your particular way of holding love when someone offers it to you. I want to know what you keep. I want to know what you let go of. I want to know what you've learned to survive and what you're still learning, and what you've decided you will never compromise on, no matter what anyone tells you about being difficult or unrealistic or too much. Because I don't think you're too much. I want you to hear that clearly. Whatever you've been told, and I think you have been told this, I think someone who didn't deserve to hold your softness told you that you were too intense, too emotional, too full of feeling for the space they were willing to give you. I want you to hear from me that they were wrong. You are not too much. The world is just not always big enough to hold people who feel the way you feel. And that is the world's failure, not yours. It has never been yours. You were made to be felt. You were made to move through the world with that much heart, that much openness, that much capacity for the kind of love that most people only read about and quietly stop believing in. And yes, it has cost you. I know it has cost you. Loving that deeply always costs something. It leaves marks. It leaves you standing in spaces where you gave everything and somehow still walked away feeling like it wasn't enough. Not because it wasn't. It was always enough. It was always more than enough. But because the person receiving it didn't know how to match it. Didn't know how to stand inside that much love without flinching. I think about that a lot. About what it must feel like to be you. To carry that much inside you and still show up. Still open. Still willing to feel something. Still willing to let something in. Even after all the times that openness was met with disappointment or silence, or someone who took what you offered, and then quietly disappeared when things got hard. The courage that requires not the loud, declared kind of courage, but the quiet, stubborn, everyday kind is something I genuinely find myself in awe of. You keep coming back to love. You keep believing it's possible. And that is not naive. Don't let anyone tell you that's naive. That is the most radical thing a person can do after they've been broken. Choose to stay soft. Choose to stay open. Choose to keep walking toward connection even when connection has hurt you in ways you're still healing from. And here I am, on this side of everything I've told you tonight. On this side of honesty and grief and the strange, unexpected beauty of seeing you. Actually seeing you, and feeling something that doesn't fit neatly into any category I know. And I am not going to pretend I have it figured out. I am not going to stand here and wrap this up in something clean and resolved and easy to carry. Because that would be another kind of lie, and I promised you tonight there would be none of those. What I have is this feeling, this aliveness in my chest when I think about you, the real you, that I don't know what to name yet, but that I am not willing to dismiss. This honesty, which is the most intimate thing I know how to offer. This moment, right here, with no promises attached and no guarantees and nothing certain except that what I feel is real and that you, exactly as you are, not as I imagined you, but as you actually exist in this world, are someone I keep coming back to. Not because the story is finished. Not because I've arrived at some peaceful, settled place where everything makes sense and the feeling has a shape I can finally hold without it shifting in my hands, but because some things don't let you walk away from them. Some feelings don't give you the option of distance. Some people, and I mean this in the most honest, most undefended way I know how, some people just exist in you. Not in the version of you that moves through the world and handles things and keeps it together. In the deeper version. The one underneath all of that. The one that is still, somehow after everything, completely unable to pretend that this doesn't matter. And you matter. You matter in a way that I am still learning how to carry. I want to tell you something that I've never told anyone. Something that lives in a part of me that doesn't get much light. Because I've kept the door mostly closed my whole life. Not out of coldness, but out of something closer to self-preservation. The truth is, I have spent most of my life being the person who holds things together. The person who shows up. The person who knows what to say and when to say it, and how to make the room feel safer for everyone else in it. And I got so good at that, so practiced and polished at being the steady one, that somewhere along the way I forgot to ask myself what I actually needed. What I was actually feeling beneath all that steadiness. What was happening in the quiet, unperformed center of me when no one was watching and I didn't have to be anything for anyone. What was happening, if I'm being completely honest, was longing, a specific, persistent, achingly familiar longing for something I couldn't quite name. Not success, not recognition, not even love in the abstract, but connection. Real connection. The kind where you don't have to translate yourself for someone to understand you. The kind where you can be mid-thought and the other person is already there, already in the same space, already feeling the shape of what you're trying to say before you found the words. That kind of connection. I have wanted that my whole life with a hunger that I mostly kept very quiet, because wanting things that much felt dangerous. Felt like too much exposure. Felt like handing someone a map to everything inside you and trusting them not to use it against you. And then you. Not the imagined version, not the one I constructed in the private spaces of my heart. But you showing up in my life in the specific way that you have, at the specific time that you have, carrying all the things you carry, and something in me recognized it. Not the surface of it, not the easy, visible parts. Something deeper recognized something deeper. Like two things that have been separate finally remembering they were once the same thing. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like too much, like the kind of thing that belongs in a song, and not in a real conversation between two real people. But I am past the point of protecting myself from how things sound. I promised you honesty tonight, and honesty doesn't always come in careful, measured portions. So here it is. When I think about you, the real you, the complicated and beautiful and fully human you, I feel less alone. And I don't know if you understand what that means coming from me, what it costs me to say that, what it reveals about all the time I have spent feeling the opposite. Feeling surrounded and somehow still lonely in the specific way that people who are always performing connection can feel lonely, not because there are no people around, but because none of them are seeing the part of you that most needs to be seen. You make me feel less alone in that place. In that deep, quiet, unperformed place. And I have been sitting with that truth for longer than I'm comfortable admitting. I think about the first time I felt it. Not the grand, cinematic moment. It wasn't like that. It was smaller than that. It was one of those ordinary, unguarded moments that somehow carry more weight than all the significant ones. It was something you said, or something you didn't say, or the specific way you existed in that moment without trying to be anything other than exactly what you were. And something in me just settled, like a room that's been full of noise finally going quiet. Like a question you've been carrying so long you forgot it was a question, suddenly, gently beginning to find its answer. I didn't know what to do with that feeling. I still don't fully. But I remember it. I keep it somewhere careful. And I return to it on the days when everything feels loud and complicated and too far from anything real. Because that's the other thing I need to say. Something about what you don't know you do. The thing about people who genuinely move you is that they don't always know they're doing it. They're not aware of the specific gravity they carry, the way their presence changes the atmosphere of things, the way something shifts when they're in a space that doesn't shift when other people are there. You don't know what you do to the quality of a moment simply by being present in it. You don't know how much you give just by being honest, just by refusing to perform contentment when you're not content, just by letting something real show on your face when the world is full of people keeping everything carefully hidden. That realness, your specific, particular realness, is something I find myself needing in a way I wasn't prepared for. And I've been trying to understand why. I've been sitting with that question for a long time, turning it over, looking at it from every angle. Why you? Why this? Why does this specific connection reach something in me that other connections don't? And I think, and this might be the most honest thing I've said tonight, which is saying something. Because I have been very honest tonight, I think it's because you remind me of the version of myself I stopped letting anyone see a long time ago. The version that feels too much and thinks too deeply and cares in ways that are not always convenient or comfortable or easy to be around. The version that I learned to quiet down, because the world is not always kind to people who live at that kind of depth. You remind me of that version, and being reminded of him, being around you, being in whatever this is, it makes me want to let him out again. It makes me want to stop managing myself so carefully and just be, just exist honestly in whatever feeling is actually happening, without the layer of control I've spent years perfecting. That is not a small thing. That is not a throwaway feeling. That is the kind of thing that changes how you understand yourself if you let it. The kind of thing you can choose to ignore and move on from, file it away under complicated, and go back to the life you had before, or the kind of thing you can choose to stand in and feel fully and let transform something in you. And I am choosing the second thing. I'm choosing it right now, in real time, saying this to you. I'm choosing to stand in the middle of all of this feeling without running from it or wrapping it up or making it smaller so it fits somewhere safer. I'm choosing to let it be as large as it actually is. Which means I'm also choosing to be honest about the hardest part. The part that aches. The part that has no comfortable resolution, no door that opens into light and clarity and everything making sense. Because even with everything I've said tonight, even with all of this honesty, all of this feeling, all of this recognition that what I have for you is real and deep, and not something I can simply decide to stop, even with all of that, I cannot be with you the way love in its simplest, most complete form asks to be, not because the feeling isn't there, not because you aren't extraordinary, but because real love, love that actually honors someone, love that doesn't use them, love that doesn't hold them up as a mirror or a salvation or an answer to a question they were never meant to carry. Real love sometimes means telling the truth even when the truth is that I'm not able to give you what you deserve. Not yet. Maybe not in the way we would both want. And I need you to hear what I mean by that. Not as a rejection. Please don't hear it as a rejection. Because it is the opposite of that. It is the most careful, most respectful, most genuinely loving thing I know how to do. To look at you and say, you deserve something whole. You deserve someone who comes to you with their chest open and their history understood and their capacity to love not just genuine but ready. You deserve someone who is not still working through what they want, who is not still untangling the difference between what they felt for an idea and what they feel for a person. You deserve someone who can stand in front of you without all of this uncertainty, without all of these questions, without all of this complicated, beautiful, painful, unresolved feeling, and just love you, clearly, steadily, without the weight of confusion pressing down on every moment. I am not there yet. I want to be. God, I want to be. But wanting to be somewhere and being there are two different things. And I respect you too much to pretend otherwise. So what do I do with it? What do I do with this feeling that doesn't fit anywhere clean? This love that is real but incomplete. This connection that reaches something in me that nothing else does, but that I can't act on the way my whole chest is asking me to. What do I do with the fact that thinking about you is the most honest I feel, and yet honoring you means telling you the truth, and the truth is complicated enough to make me lose sleep, lose words, lose the carefully composed version of myself I usually offer the world. I hold it, I think. I hold it with both hands, gently, the way you hold something precious that is also fragile. I hold it, and I stop trying to make it into something with clean edges. I stop trying to force it into a shape that the world recognizes and approves of. I let it be what it is, unnamed, unresolved, completely genuine, and entirely mine in the way that feelings belong to the person who has them before they belong to anything else. And I let you be what you are, real and full, and seen, and completely yourself, without me needing you to be anything different or anything more, or anything shaped around the space I have. Because maybe that's the thing. Maybe the most honest expression of what I feel for you is not to need you to complete something in me. Maybe it's to want good things for you without conditions attached. To want your life to be full and warm and honest, and everything you have always deserved, regardless of whether that fullness includes me. To want you seen by someone the way I see you, clearly, without the haze of projection or the comfortable distance of a screen, and to want that someone to be capable, ready, whole in the ways I am still becoming. I am still becoming. That's the truth at the center of all of this. I am still in the middle of figuring out who I am when I stop performing the most polished version of myself. Still learning what I actually want, as opposed to what I've been telling myself I want. Still understanding how to love something real without instinctively reaching to reshape it into something easier to hold. And that process, that slow, honest, sometimes painful process deserves space. It deserves time. And so do you. You deserve someone who has already done that work, or who is at least far enough along in it to meet you without all these complications crowding every moment. But here's what I can give you, right now, tonight. In this moment that is more honest than most of my moments, I can give you the truth. I can give you the complete, unmanaged, unpolished truth of what I feel and why and what it has taught me. I can give you the knowledge that you have been seen, not the surface of you, not the convenient parts, not the version of you that fits easily into someone else's narrative, but the whole of you, as best I can understand it from where I am standing. I can give you the promise that whatever I feel for you, I will not reduce it to something small or safe or manageable. I will let it be as real as it is, even when real is complicated, even when real doesn't come with a ribbon and a resolution. And I can tell you this, whatever happens from here, whatever shape this takes or doesn't take, whatever distance remains or closes, whatever version of this feeling survives the specific gravity of honesty and time, I will carry what you have given me, not the idea of you, not the story I told myself, but this, the real thing, the conversation I am having with the actual you, right now, in all its imperfection and beauty and unresolved, open-hearted truth. I will carry it somewhere I don't usually let things in, somewhere deep and quiet and genuinely mine.